This is the scariest sound you will hear when you live in a communist country. This is the last sound my parents heard when their fathers were taken away in the middle of the night, and they never saw their loved ones again. That's Joe Biden's Justice Department sending 24 armed agents to arrest a pro-life activist in front of his family. That's Joe Biden's IRS raiding a gun shop and seizing thousands of records from law-abiding gun owners. Our names, our addresses, our social security numbers. That's Joe Biden arresting his challenger in the next election, a former president of the United States.
Pretty powerful, isn't it? Usually those campaign ads suck. That one was awesome. Joining me now, I can't believe this guy might win this thing. I'm excited about this. Republican Senate nominee in the state of Virginia and retired Navy captain, but we won't hold that against him. Hung Cao. Hung, that is, the ad really brings it home because you've lived it. Your family has lived it.
No, thank you, Jesse. I'm telling you right now that it's kind of scary that they're turning this country into what I ran away from. You know, I've spent 25 years in Navy Special Operations to fight to defend this country, only to see it being destroyed by from the inside by leftist, Marxist, Democrats.
Hung, when we use words like Marxism, communism, I use these words oftentimes, Americans, especially the norms and normies, they'll kind of roll their eyes, tell you to take the tin foil off your head. But I have so many Cubans, former people from the Soviet Union, Vietnam, who are in this country now screaming, you don't understand, it's happening right here. Why can't we see? Why won't we see?
I mean, first it starts with the snitch line that Tim Walz set up in Minnesota to rat on your neighbors. Now I think in Michigan, they're setting up a snitch line for kids if their parents aren't safeguarding their guns properly or mishandling it. And that's what they do. They take the kids and they turn them against the parents and they indoctrinate them in schools. And that's exactly what the Cultural Revolution is in China. I mean, they're basically taking kids and turning them against parents, turning neighbor against neighbor. That's what communists do. Let's
shift gears, talk about Virginia for a couple minutes here. Now, I lived there for a year, probably the most beautiful state in the country, probably is the most beautiful state in the country. But it's also been traditionally a fairly blue state. I know we have Glenn Youngkin now, but I'm looking at these poll numbers, Hung, and you might be a senator from the state of Virginia. What's happening there?
So since Glenn Youngkin, first of all, I'll go back to 2020. President Trump lost Virginia by 10 points. In 2021, Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Sears, and Jason Miyares won all three statewide elections. In 22, I ran for Congress, but I didn't win. It's in the 10th Congressional District, which includes the infamous Loudoun County, where the school board was attacking parents and trying to label them as domestic terrorists. I moved an area where Joe Biden won by 19% down to 6%. It's the hardest place to win, and I moved it so far over, and I almost won that race. And we gained one seat in the House of Representatives. In 23, the state elections happened, and even though we lost because of gerrymandering, more Republicans showed up than Democrats. And now, today, we're seeing a huge influx of early voters since last Friday for early voting in all the districts, and it's very exciting.
Are the people waking up? Are there more people moving to Virginia? I'm just not used to this state going this way.
Well, it's just the Southwest is coming out, and up north where I live, the immigrants, they're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. It's like, oh my gosh, you guys are turning this into a communist state, and they're scared. And that's why I'm able to move a lot of them. I mean, even the Muslim community, I can go into a mosque and say, look, I bled for you guys. I defused bombs in Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia to save the lives of Muslims. I dove down, recovered aircrafts that crashed, that had a lot of Muslim people on there. I went over Pakistan during the earthquake to recover the victims. I'm asking for Islam to, for the Muslims to stand behind me because I stood behind you guys to save your lives. And not just that, when they try to turn your boys into girls and girls into boys and let men go into the women's bathrooms to wash their feet, then who's going to stand behind you? It's not going to be Tim Kaine, and that's who I'm running against. Hillary Clinton's running mate.
Hung, let's talk about the military because we have a recruitment and retention crisis. People don't talk enough about the retention crisis, but the truth is, Hung, that 17-year-old young men, that high school wrestler in Virginia who wants to be the next Hung Kao, he doesn't want to go fight for the U.S. of gay. He doesn't want to be told that he's a racist. He doesn't want to be scolded about social justice. He wants adventure and danger and brotherhood and training and service. And that guy, he's going to do something else now, and it's a disaster for our country.
No, you're absolutely right. So let's look at what happened in Afghanistan in 2021. I left there in January 2021. It was relatively stable. Their country was starting to take the training wheels off their bikes, and they're standing on their own 2 feet. And then just watching Joe Biden, cause that entire country to fall apart, people getting left behind in Afghanistan, including our allies. Then the COVID shot happened, and we kicked out tens of thousands of guys from these tier 1, tier 2 units. Basically SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force and all the SEAL teams were getting kicked out because they weren't getting this experimental vaccine. So then they decide they're going to have some cross-dresser as a recruiter. And look, I mean, I don't know who wore more makeup, this guy or Mark Milley, but you're looking at demonizing. You're demonizing the alpha males and alpha females we need in the military. The young people, they're going to rip out their own guts, eat them, and ask for seconds. And you replace them with these cross-dresser. Of course, you're going to turn these guys away.
Hung, what do we need to do to help you win? How do we put you over the top in Virginia?
Well, for all your viewers, you can't vote for me if you don't live in Virginia, but I can vote for you. My vote in the U.S. Senate will help you. And the only way to get your voice out there is through commercials. And look, if Comrade Bernie can amass $200 million from $20 donations, then I ask you to go to hungforva.com. That's HUNGFORVA.com, and contribute a little bit, because we win Virginia. President Trump wins the presidency, and we're going to get this country back in order.
Hung, I appreciate you, my brother. Semper Fi. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.